Hello guys, it's PS3 Fanboy 16 here. Me and my brother are going to have a conversation. Hopefully the audio isn't terrible. Hopefully he'll send me the thing. We will actually be answering a question. Why did Lincoln declare war on the Confederacy? I'm going to read all the answers, and including mine, because, that's, I believe, would make sense. So, I'm going to video call him. Alright, you ready? I already sent it to you. Obviously, that's because we're talking. Alright. Okay, well, I'll just start it off. Why did Abraham Lincoln declare war on the South? Oh. Well, I'm recording. Fine. But I'm going to read the false answer. The answer, the false person sent. Lincoln did not declare war on the seceded states. As far as Lincoln was concerned, the Confederate States of America was not a separate nation at war, but a section of the indivisible United States in rebellion. Well, first off, in the Constitution, it is said, these United States, meaning they are separate. Alright, you ready? Alright, well, as I said, the problem with the first paragraph, or the first section of this answer, is Lincoln claimed that he was doing so to end the use of slavery. That's a problem because the South ended in 1863. The war didn't end until 1865, so you have 2 years which have no point. Continuing, this may seem blah blah blah, but it had profound implications for the conduct of the war, which, let me tell you, had them basically raping women, killing them, and taking all the food, leaving so many people without any means of feeding themselves, so they eventually ate each other. Yeah, you don't get to hear that in the history books. If the Confederate States of America had been an independent sovereign nation, the seceded states would have to be readmitted to the Union according to the processes, blah blah blah, whatever. There was a right to secession, and there is. It's fucking Amendment 10. The states have the right to secession. The Supreme Court said it was illegal after the Civil War because people fucking used it. You can't even make it illegal. It's part of the foundation of this country. To make that illegal is to go against the very foundation of this nation. It is unconstitutional. It's part of the Constitution. You know, that thing that makes the nation and is the framework of everything this nation is? Without it, you have no government because you have no foundation. They smoke it, yeah. 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 Let's see here. Yeah, let's see here. Something the South claimed and the North just as denied, it would have left the Paul ajar to some future secession crisis and the prospect of another civil war. I'm going to have to stop that and say, Lincoln did so to end slaves. As I said, the South ended slavery in 1863, which was the big fucking issue of the time. What other civil war would have developed? Had the South become a nation, they would have just went west. And if Lincoln just recognized them, then there would have been no hostilities. The next president would have probably been able to talk some kind of trade agreement, and the whole issue would be done. And probably in a couple decades, you could probably try and get them to rejoin. You just have to be civil with them. I mean, you saw it in Ukraine. They literally voluntarily joined the fucking Russian Federation. Why couldn't it be done with the southern states after, maybe a few years? Maybe like 1950 or something, you give them a vote. Do they want to join the United States? Let them have a choice. I mean, I even said this. I sent this to a person who said Lincoln was one of the greatest presidents this nation has ever had. I then said, okay, this dude killed almost 700,000 people. He killed like 600,000 plus people. That's roughly 1% of the United States population of the time. If you scale that up, that 1%, which was like 600,000 people, if you scale that up to today, that'd be like 4 million people. Keep in mind that Adolf Hitler killed like 6 million people, so Lincoln had 2 million behind him. That's not exactly great. Let's also keep in mind that he sent federal troops into the South. Okay? Then, when the South fought back and fired on Fort Sumter, guess what? He had a war. He had the very thing he needed to make the South look bad. But yet, they don't tell you that he sent federal troops in there. And let's also let's not deny the fact that he also had the Navy, which was firing shots into a city, or at least into its harbor, to prove that, hey, you leave this nation, we're just gonna bomb your shit. Which, if you look at Civil War pictures, that's essentially what they fucking did. They went in and they bombed the fucking cities. And then they sent troops in and burnt all the food. If they couldn't have it, they burnt it. They burnt entire towns. Which was the whole fucking point of the March to the Sea. Which was literally to destroy the morale of the South. By basically destroying towns. Killing and raping women. Well, this is... Well, yes, I fucking want to leave too. If the government that I'm currently under is threatening to attack me, which, oddly enough, is what this nation's doing today. With all the illegal invasion of privacy, the illegal entering of someone's home. Yeah. Hell, nowadays, you can videotape this shit. This nation's not free anymore. It's the illusion of it. Alright, let's continue. Um, many of Lincoln's novels, has. Alright, so basically, his novels and his books basically say that he didn't even see the South as a nation, but just a rebellion. Okay, that's an interesting answer. I'm gonna disagree on that answer on several points, but it's an interesting answer to the question. Next answer is, in addition to the previous Parsons answer, the primary cause was that the Confederate forces bombarded and forced the evacuation of a Union-held Fort Sumter in South Carolina. It was very important to Lincoln that the Union not attack unless the false shots were fired by the South. Yes, which oddly enough was a response to them invading. If someone went in your home and you didn't want them to be in your home, you would fight against them, right? You would do everything in your power to get them to leave. In this case, they fired on a Union base with an invasion of Union soldiers. I mean, hell, even before the firing, you have Union troops in the southern, in land of Dixie. They had no reason to be there. The only reason they were there was to prompt a southern aggressive move, which that southern aggressive move was the firing onto Fort Sumter, which got Lincoln his war, made him look good, and eventually led to over 600,000 lives lost, countless cities destroyed, and unknown amounts of women raped. I mean, I have nothing against Lincoln as a military tactician. He was a genius in terms of that. He was able to use the new technology, the telegraph, and for that I applaud him. But when I read that comment that Lincoln was one of the greatest presidents this nation has ever had, it's like, what the fuck? I mean, he butchered the Constitution. Yeah. I mean, of course, it's kind of weird how the Confederacy had British people coming over to see if they would want to invest in this thing. They actually had people from Britain come over and basically walk around the southern camps to see if they wanted to help the South declare their independence, which was no different than America did in 1776. I mean, yeah, that would make sense. Hold on, that doesn't make sense. Because the original land was the 13 colonies, and if you know your history, the 13 colonies went from Maine. Except more states in the South. So, more people have more states. More territory. How the hell would that make sense? Well, we have the upper part, long way, I think it was, and western part. Even the western claim was CSA, but had the CSA actually been seen as an actual nation by the international body, they would have went west, which meant that they would eventually have hit the west coast, which would have meant that they would have also been able to acquire all the states that was west or Texas.
The balloon floats away, and when the balloon gets signed over to the bridge, then it's whoever wants it. But yeah, that area everyone was going to have to do. It said, "Bitch, if you help us to recognize us, we will help you get the territory." But why not the only person that you would own that will have your little empire again?
And they had an empire even into the 20th century. They had India. They had parts of Africa.
And then, when they moved up the 13 colonies, they had to go over and take them around. Because they couldn't have anything else.
I'm pretty sure most of the land that Britain had going into the 20th century, they probably had majority of those places under the control before we even declared our independence. Us declaring independence was like a drop in the bucket. It really didn't matter to the British. It was a nuisance. If anything, it was just a nuisance. That's the whole reason why they didn't send their top men. They sent like their second-rate novice soldiers in first. And by the time they realized that, hey, you need to actually send some well-trained people, we already had France behind us. And they sent their men in, and they trained America to actually be a well-oiled machine. So by the time that Britain realized that, hey, you actually need to put some fucking effort into this, it was already too late.
And now, since we got trained by the French, we now act like the French. We want something, we want to have it.
Alright, well, let's go to the third answer. No war was declared, because Lincoln would not recognize the Confederacy as a sovereign power. The war was the suppression of a rebellion and insurrection.
And then we would never recognize it, then we had to go maybe become not very well anymore. If you really have to do a misstep, that means they're left.
Yeah, if you have to bring them back in, then yeah, they have to have left. You can't just readmit something that never went away. That doesn't even make sense. If it was a simple rebellion, then they wouldn't have had to be readmitted into the Union. Because they would have never fucking left. You would have just stopped the rebellion and that would be it. Now, I know that I've already read this to you, but let's go to mine. If you go by what I'm sure you've been told, he did so to end the use of slaves. But the South ended that in 1863, so past that I'm not really sure why he did. I guess he didn't want the South to go west, but as the West is not really made for what the South did, I fail to see why he would care. That said, I'd like to let you know that Lincoln didn't really care about slaves, or what the South did, as long as they didn't move west, but keeping in mind that by doing so would make the South weak, and so it was a surefire way of having a civil war, or being very near to one. In Modern Warfare 2, a video game, the bad guy says this, and keep in mind that's not how it was said, but anyway. History is made by who wins. The North won, so any history would be done with a pro-North mindset in view. To end the so-called Civil War, the so-called Civil War was never a civil war. As far as I know, the North and South were two nations. Both had an army and everything a nation would need. Nobody was making a move to take over the other. Had Lincoln seen the South as its own nation, no war would have taken place. Slaves would have gone on for a few more years before the need would lower due to things coming along that could do it with less people. AKA machinery, railroad, so that you could bring in these the materials to build the factories. And the farthest I could see the use of slaves would probably be 1900. I honestly cannot see it beyond that by much. If it went beyond 1900, it would have probably phased out before 1910. Because obviously, if the South had become a nation, then there would have been pressure to end the use of slavery, because no nation by 1890, 1900 would want to trade with someone that still used slaves. So if you're in the mindset that had the South become a nation, that we'd have slaves today, is fucking laughable. That doesn't even make any logical sense.
Yeah, the Second World War, the one main thing that would not happen. But the Klan never had been burned.
Yes, because the Ku Klux Klan, the whole Klan thing was made because they lost. If Lincoln never actually went to war with them, they wouldn't have lost. There would have been no hate, so there wouldn't have been a Klan formation.
And two, there would have been a well-known Nazi movement.
Yeah, probably, yeah. I could see that. Without... Yeah, and I also want to tell you this. I doubt that most people know this, but there was a Nazi movement in America in the 1900s. I don't know exactly when it happened, but I think it was like 1920s, 1930s. It was before the Second World War. There was a giant gathering, and in the middle was Washington, the first president. And they had United States flags, and they had Nazi flags. Guess what flag wasn't there? The Confederate flag. I mean, I've looked at Klan gatherings, like that giant one, I think in the 20s, with like a million fucking people. I looked, I could not find a Confederate flag. I saw a lot of American flags. I could not find a Confederate flag, and I've said this many times, that the Confederate flag never flew over a slave ship. The Confederacy had slaves for a few years. Yeah, most people think that the battle flag is the flag. No, it's fucking not. The whole it's called a battle flag, people. It's not a national flag.
That flag was never recognized as an official national flag. Never.
Exactly.
They were never recognized as a state battle flag or regiment's battle flag as well. Never by black government.
It was never recognized by Jackson Davis. It was not recognized by any of the higher ups. Again, the Civil War was never a civil war. A civil war, from what I understand, is when you try and take over a government. We had two governments. They had presidents. They had a whole chain of succession. From the president to vice president to, I think it's the Speaker of the House. All the way down. There was no need for Jackson Davis and the Confederate government to take over the United States government. We had two capitals. One was in Washington, D.C. One was in Richmond, Virginia. They both had presidents. They both had governments. For all intents and purposes, they were two nations. The only thing keeping them from being two nations is that Lincoln didn't want to recognize the Confederacy as its own nation. Had he done that, we'd have two nations. one on the north part and one on the south part.
And for some, we would have probably found it online.
Really? That's the Confederacy would have created the UN?
It looked like we co-founded the UN.
Oh, co-founded. Well, that's a big fucking statement. Got anything to back that up?
The UN was known as a peacekeeping firm. Look, that's cool, right? But nobody co-founded it, and we have the pretty much like Russia. They have people power.
Hmm.
But, the American partners go over it, so we'll probably get help in the information of it.
I suppose. But yeah, it's like, had Lincoln recognized the Confederacy, we'd have no Civil War. I mean, obviously they wouldn't want to rejoin, probably for a while, but, I mean, it's not entirely impossible to assume that probably in a generation or two, when they don't really care about that stuff anymore, that they wouldn't be willing to rejoin the Union in 50, 60 years. Yeah, I don't really see it. Had the Confederacy was a thing that was recognized, I cannot really see the Southern economy collapsing, because let's face it, people in the South walk their ass off. You know. Southern, yeah. It's amazing if the Union would simply attack the East and the West, they would have no army. They'd have no military. If they would just attack the East and the West part of this country, they fucked. They straight out fucked. Because the only thing they would have would be maybe 80,000 men, maybe 100,000 people. They'd probably have no Navy. They'd probably have no Air Force. And if they did, it'd be fucking a joke. It'd be like a tugboat and one soldier. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
The way you're gonna die is a very special way. You're going to die with a bullet in your head.
Yeah.
Lincoln, Hitler,
Yeah, he did, didn't he? I honestly didn't remember that. Yeah, Lincoln actually shot himself. But Lincoln actually got shot by someone else. John Wilkes Booth, yeah. Yeah. Lincoln got shot by John Wilkes Booth. But yeah. Both tyrants, basically made their separate nations believe that what they were doing was moral. Lincoln was saying that I'm fighting for equality or the freeing of the slaves. But notice that he didn't even attempt, even after he did that thing with the 13th Amendment, even after that passed, he didn't make any effort to actually, set aside land or anything. It's like, okay, you're free, now go away. Not Asia, Africa. Why the hell would he? Never mind. I don't even want to know. Yeah, Africa. I suppose, yeah. Obviously, fucking Asia. He was gonna send black people to Asia. Yeah, they would fucking look weird next to all those squinty-eyed fucks. Yeah, and I know I kind of made a racial thing. It's a joke. Learn to take a joke. Don't take offense. Even if you did take offense, I'd probably still laugh at you. I'd probably laugh at you more if you took offense to it. Because then that's just fucking sad. But yeah, it's like... What were we saying? Oh yeah, the similarities to Lincoln and Hitler. Yeah. They both basically said, basically convinced them that, yeah, what we're doing is morally right. Lincoln basically said, I'm fighting for the black people. Yet, I'm not actually going to set aside any land, nor did his successor, the person that succeeded him, he didn't set aside any land, from what I understand. He didn't care. Which is kind of fucked up. When he freed the black people, there was about 10 or 12 years where you could call it a second civil war. So, so really, if you want to call the war between 1861 and 1865 the Civil War, then the next 12 years should really just be called the continuation. Because that's essentially what happened. Because the nation literally started to tear itself apart. Black people was like pushing for like the right to vote and all that shit, and they all got butchered in cities, and it was utter fucking chaos. Yeah. I mean, it would have been avoided. It would have been simply avoided had he just recognized the South as a nation. There would have been no Civil War. There would have been no Reconstruction. There would be no fucking need to be reconstructed because it wouldn't be fucking destroyed.
The real idea behind that was we wanted to bring both ideas into account.
Which I said in paragraph 3. In Modern Warfare 2, a video game, the bad guy says this, and keep in mind this is not how it was said, but anyway. History is made by who wins. The North won, so any history would be done with a pro-North mindset in view, which is exactly what happened in the Reconstruction. They wanted to basically brainwash the Southern people that, hey, you were in the wrong here, and we were in the right. You should agree with us. Which is the whole point of what you see today, which is taking down flags that they don't approve of. I think I made a video, I'm not entirely sure, talking about this, that there was a boy, I think in Virginia, that had a Confederate flag and a POW flag, and they didn't want him to be able to fly that because it wasn't on the flagpole. And I was going to say, well then put it on the damn flagpole. Oh. Yeah. You know what I would do? I would put 2 flagpoles into one of the school and just fly both and be done with it. One being the United States and one being the Confederate flag, and be done with it. Because let's face it, both fucking flags are American flags. No, they literally are both American flags. There's virtually no difference. If you look at a Confederate flag, one of the national recognizable, they are the same fucking color. It's red, white, and blue. The only difference is what it looks like. That's it. I mean, hell, I think the banner flag is the same. I think I've seen versions of it that literally have red, white, and blue. The only difference is how it looks. I don't fucking know. I think it's like red and white. Yeah, I really don't know. Why? Because the American flag would have a maple leaf? Look at us, we're all attacking all bunch of shit. We're attacking the flag of Canada, we're attacking Asian people, we're attacking Abraham Lincoln, we're attacking a lot of fucking things. Yeah, let's not touch the gay thing. Yeah. I suppose, yeah. I guess that wouldn't really be something that you'd want. I wonder how this answer will be seen by people. Cause I'm pretty sure that someone's gonna like come in here and be like, what the fuck? Because I think I'm the longest answer, and I think mine's the more well thought out, more developed answer. All the other ones are like pro-North views. And I don't know if these people are just stupid or they literally believe that that's the reason why he did so, but no. The question? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not. This one, yeah, okay. I think the first one was, it was like the 29th of January of 2013. The answer just before mine was made on the 8th of this year. So, yeah. I highly doubt that people are actually going to look at it. But if, for whatever reason, people do look at it, I wonder how they're going to take it. Like, what the fuck? Because, as I said, mine's the more well thought out one, and it's the more developed, and it's the more broad. It basically covers a lot of shit. That's probably what happened, yeah. What was the question? Yeah, like that's the problem with America. It's like they'd rather forget that they made that giant fucking mistake. It's kind of like Germany with Nazis. They just don't want to admit that yeah they had a fucked up patch of history. You know that's kind of what America is doing with the Confederacy thing. It's, yeah, they're basically saying yeah we're just gonna bury this. We're gonna bury it and like act like it never fucking happened, and we'll kind of acknowledge it in passing with faint nods and kind of nervous gestures, but yeah, let's keep that from really being known, which is the whole point of they're not teaching the true history of the like. It's kind of funny to me how we know the Lincoln sent troops in, but they never fucking teach it in schools.
Oh, I think that when they found out Confederates, I didn't think they were as rebels.
Yeah, it's like I actually read a history book that quite literally, and I'm not even fucking joking, literally had 3 sentences that basically talked about the war. And it was literally the South declared war against the United States to protect their state rights, and then they literally list the ownership of slaves as one of them. It's like, what? They ended it in 1863. So explain to me what happened the other 2 years. Lincoln was going to war to free slaves. So, what the fuck was he doing in the other 2? Was he just like twiddling his thumbs, waiting for them to surrender? Was that the fucking thing? Because fucking Lincoln didn't have a fucking problem sending in Sherman to fucking rape and destroy every fucking thing of value.
They decided to bring in the nuclear, anti-separation plan, and that pretty much failed. Because we're not that here.
Yeah, you know, I just noticed a question. Why did Lincoln hate slavery? Well, he hated slavery because he saw a lot of black people being mistreated. But let's not make the assumption that just because he hated slavery meant that he wanted to end it. Hating something doesn't mean that you're immediately going to try to stop it from ever being a thing.
And what I've seen, Lincoln didn't care about slavery. So I think his family owned slaves. And when he took over, he didn't care.
Well, yeah, that does make sense. And it's kind of funny, remembering that American history thing, the history or story of us, they literally talked about Lincoln, and they never even showed him in a negative light. They always showed him as a positive, which is typical, considering that the Union won the Civil War, which I really hate saying, but you know, if I don't, people will probably get pissed off. Because they never talked about the fact that, you know, the South ended in 1863, the use of slaves, that he essentially ordered Sherman to basically destroy everything of value in the South. Every fucking thing. It's not illegal.
It ain't illegal when you stop blacks. It don't make it illegal when the Civil War ended. And you have yet to make it illegal. Why? Because you can't. It's illegal. if you make a law that really says you cannot leave, then you'd say, meet me at the start and then
Basically, if you make secession illegal, then you might as well say that the very foundation that makes this country even function doesn't fucking matter. Because that's essentially what you're doing.
I mean, the argument that the second was illegal, because when the UN did it, and 1330 did it, they should be equally brought back to no person.
Yeah, technically, if secession was illegal, then we ain't a nation then. I've even said this so many times. Nations are formed by some part of it leaving. Sometimes it's peaceful. Sometimes it's not. In this case, America was made by seceding in a war. Acting like it's illegal, that doesn't... Then how the hell do we even exist as a nation?
This is that part. The US was formed by 1330s leaving for the war.
Exactly.
The South was created by a fake.
Yeah, basically. The United States was founded by basically killing each other, and the Confederacy was literally reached by peace. They basically literally voted for it, and they left. No bloodshed was shed until Lincoln came along and said, fuck you, I don't care, and I'm just going to kill you and make you come back. He invaded another nation, yes. Yes, essentially yes. By the very act of him sending troops in, when they left, when he sent troops in, after they left, by doing that very thing, he had to have recognized them. He might have denied it in his little books, but he had to have at least seen them as a possible nation. He had to have at least acknowledged the possibility that they could be a nation. Which is the whole point why he sent federal troops into the South, which led to the firing of Fort Sumter, which gave him the excuse he needed to then send even more in, which eventually led to roughly 1% of the United States population. When you scale that up, that's like 4 million people. He was a fucking warmonger. He was a fucking tyrant. And the fact that we idolize him, we have him on our money, there's a giant fucking statue of him in the Capitol. I mean, wow, dude. You're literally worshipping a mass murderer.
I think Washington doesn't have a massive statue.
He has a giant pointy thing.
No, it's not a pointy thing. But, there's a giant crystal.
Also, the city was named after him. Washington. There's a state called Washington. His face is even carved on a mountain. Hell, even I think Lincoln is carved next to him. So you have a patriot and you have a warmonger. That's kind of really fucked up. So you have one of the best presidents, and then you had Lincoln, which killed more people in this nation than anyone else. Period.
Right. Two best presidents. And left. Washington and Jackson. That's it.
Yeah. I agree perfectly, yes. Two of the best presidents this nation has ever produced was Washington and Jefferson.
I Lincoln won because he was acting with England. And Jefferson because...
Wait, hold on. Wait. Lincoln was a really good leader? Do you not know your history? The fucker lost almost every battle he was a part of in the Revolutionary War. He may have been a good leader, but he lost the majority of his battles. He won the war because the French finally got their asses in gear. I don't know why didn't at Yorktown. Imagine if they were like 1 day late. Imagine that. We probably wouldn't even be a nation. Do you think the South gave up? Which is another thing that pisses me off. When people say, the war is over. Do you not understand how a war works? To end a war, you have to have two things. You have to have these two things. It's non-negotiable. You have to have them. You have to have the military surrender. That happened. There's pictures of it, documentation of it. You also have to have the government give up. The government never fucking gave up. It never fucking... So, the government just went away. It went into exile. It didn't surrender. So it never... The war's never ended. It's quite literally the longest ceasefire. Really, the only thing keeping the Confederacy from being a government anymore is literally no one stepped up to take the position. Quite literally, that's it. Yeah, basically. The second the Civil War technically ended, they basically sent a bunch of people in and probably removed anyone that wasn't going to agree with them and probably had them executed or something. And if they weren't executed, they were fucking booted out of the nation. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of sad. You know, people like to just have this like one-sided view. Like had the South won. You know, almost 9 times out of 10, it's always the same basic view of what would happen. Slaves would always exist. Like that's not even practical. That doesn't even make any practical sense. Around the time that the Civil War took place, many nations around the world were ending the use of slaves. So even if they did win, why would you immediately assume that the South would have done so?
training, so you're going to that yourself is going to into your work segment.
Yeah, it was shit backwards. But yeah. Alright, I'm pretty sure we talked about this. Do you want to end this?
Yeah.
Alright, well, let me end the video first.